بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد فالسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Dear brothers and sisters, today I will do a special feature on this channel here, and I will give a brief introduction to my new book. Now, for those of you who do not follow me on Facebook, I decided to record this video, and also for those who do follow me as well, because I think it is important to introduce my book and clarify a few points. Now, I published my book 10 Principles for 10 Essential Islamic Sciences in the beginning of August of this month, and it is available at lulu.com, which is an independent publishing platform. And below the video I will give the link where you can buy the book. Now, this is how the book looks. This is the cover of the book, and the book contains 101 pages. So it's a standard size paperback, white paper, and the book is basically an abridgment or a summary of my previous work, Principles of Islamic Studies. Now, what do I say at the back cover, the back cover blurb? Now, following the success of Principles of Islamic Studies, my previous book, for those who don't know, I felt inspired to compose a concise abridgment of that work. This allowed me to refine some points in the original text and incorporate an essential element missing from the above-mentioned work, an elaborate biography of the scholar who composed the most famous lines of poetry on the 10 foundational principles, al-Mabadi al-Ashara. For the first time in the English language, this book presents an in-depth biography of the illustrious Egyptian scholar Sheikh Muhammad bin Ali al-Sabban, may Allah have mercy on him, a master scholar who deserves far greater attention and recognition among contemporary students of Islamic knowledge and ulama. Alongside this biography, this work introduces the 10 foundational principles for 10 essential Islamic sciences. And we will come to see which sciences this concerns. Mastering these core principles equips beginning students of knowledge with a solid foundation, paving the way for deeper study on their journey toward joining the ranks of the people of knowledge. So that is what I write at the back cover blurb. Now, this book, as said, and which is obvious from the title, discusses 10 principles, al-Mabadi al-Ashara in Arabic, for 10 essential Islamic sciences. Now, a question people might have, who know my previous work and who bought that copy, why should you buy this work? And this question is also, of course, for those people who have not bought my previous work yet. But I will give some attention to this question for those people who are wondering, why did you bring out this book? Why did you publish this book? What is the benefit of this book? Now, before answering these questions, just a little bit about this book, so people who are not aware of my previous work have some idea about this work. So, when you study Islam and you want to go deep into Islam, you will find there are many sciences, right? Go to any institute, and you will be presented courses in Aqidah, Fiqh, Tafsir, Tajweed, Mustalah al-Hadith, Sirah, and you name it, right? So these are some sciences. Now, at some institutes or some universities, Islamic universities, you will be introduced to a certain subject or science with these 10 principles. So these 10 principles, they will give you an overview of that science. Now, what are these 10 principles, right? So we have al-had, the definition, al-mawdu', the topic, al-thamara, which is the benefit of that science or the fruit of that science, al-haddu wal-mawdu' thumma al-thamara, nisbatun, which is the relationship of that science with the other sciences. Then we have al-fadl, the virtue of that science, and then we have nisbatun wa fadluhu al-wadi', which is al-wadi' is the one who founded that science, the founder or the pioneer of that science. Then you will get al-ism, the name of that science, al-istimdad, which are the sources for that science. Al-ismu wal-istimdad hukmu shari'. This is the legal judgment or the judgment of the lawgiver on that science, meaning whether it is haram or halal or wajib or recommended or disliked. And lastly, al-masail. And al-masail are the topics discussed in that science. This is a brief overview of those 10 principles, just so you have an idea, right? Then 10 sciences in this work, right? 10 essential Islamic sciences, and I will mention them just a little bit later on, inshallah. So 10 sciences are part of the muqarrar, or part of the curriculum for any student of knowledge, in the least, or at least 10 sciences, you can say. That's one part of the book. The second part of the book, or the second half, you could say, or rather it is the first half, the other half is discussing the biography of the author or the composer of the most famous lines on these 10 mabadi. And you heard me rehearsing a few of those lines briefly, not fully but briefly. Now, who is this author? Who is Sheikh Muhammad bin Ali al-Sabban, rahimahullah? Many people might not know him or might have never heard of him before, and up to now you cannot find any biography of him in English. So I decided to compile that biography because I wanted to know who he was, right? I compiled his biography from the Arabic sources available to me, and I added it to this book as a special feature because I felt that was a missing element in the previous book. This is basically the outline of the book, right? Now, coming back to these questions, right? People have or might have when they saw I announced the publication of this book, right? Let me go to my laptop here because I wrote down a few points just to clarify to you in a compact way, in a concise way. Now, why should you get this book, right? This is the question I address, and it contains of two questions, two sub-questions. First question is, why did you publish this book if you already published a book with basically the same content? Now, the thing is, this new publication, this new book, does not contain the same content for a big part. And I already alluded to this, I already explained this if you've listened carefully. So this book here is different from my previous book, and it has some special features not in my previous book. Now, what are those differences? This is important. First difference is this book contains a foreword by Ustad Sheikh Haroon Sidat, or Haroon Sidat, from the UK. Some of you might know him. So that's one. So the previous work had forewords by other scholars. This time I decided to ask Ustad Haroon Sidat. Second point where it's different is it's a summary. It's an abridgment of the previous work. And this is in line, with what Islamic scholars in the past did when it came down to the purposes of writing, right? I did nothing else than that which other authors did in the past. I abridged my own work. And although other people, abridge other people's work as well, of course, right? That's clear. The author himself does not always abridge his own work. But for example, one example, recent example or contemporary example, we have the book Ta'adhim al-Ilm by Sheikh al-Usaymi from Saudi. He summarized his own work, and that book has the title Khulasa Ta'adhim al-Ilm, right? That's one example. There's many more examples, but this is just one example to illustrate, and it's an example I followed in that sense. Now, this is a summary or an abridgment. How does that manifest itself? It manifests itself in several ways. One, I've left out chapters of the previous book, and I've shortened or abridged chapters of the previous book. That's one way this difference manifests itself with the previous work. Secondly, in the previous work, I mentioned or suggested texts and books you can study for each and every science. I left that out in this work. Thirdly, in this work, I only discussed the 10 principles for 10 sciences, as opposed to the previous work where I discussed the 10 principles for 17 sciences. Right? And these 10 sciences in this work are Sarf, Nahu, Fiqh, Mantiq, Aqidah, Balagha, Usul al-Fiqh, Mustalah al-Hadith, Tajweed, and lastly, number 10, Tafsir. Right? So in this work, only those 10 sciences are discussed. Why only these 10 sciences? That's a question you might have. Why did I only choose those 10 sciences? Now, this is explained in the introduction of my work, page 7, and I will go there. I'll read it to you. In page 7, I write, "For the sake of brevity and convenience, I limited the number of sciences in this second book to 10. Many books in the Azhari tradition that discuss the 10 principles in Arabic are also limited to this number of sciences, and they are the most essential Islamic sciences." Right? So this is where I answered that question. Now, some other reasons are why I limited myself to these 10 sciences in this book. One, the number 10 is a nice round number. That's one. Secondly, as you can see from the title, it's 10 principles for 10 Islamic sciences. So the number 10 connects with the number 10 there. I thought that was nice to do. But this is quite superficial. Now, um, uh, one of the other reasons is that these 10 sciences are the most essential Islamic sciences and the most well-known sciences, right? And you will get a curated overview of them. And lastly, as I also mentioned in my foreword, this is in line with the Azhari way, the Azhari method, or the Azhari curriculum of old, right? And I tend to look at that curriculum to get inspiration, and I tend to look at that curriculum as being an exemplary curriculum, right? It's an all-round curriculum, you could say. Many books or manuscripts about this topic also limit themselves to these 10 sciences. And you might find 11 or 12 even, but if you go back to the classical works originating from the 18th, 19th century, you will see many authors, many students of knowledge who graduated from Al-Azhar also discussed these 10 sciences, and there might be a slight different they might be slightly different by leaving out one science or adding another science, but basically they do the same, and the idea behind it is the same. Then another difference with the previous work is that I added and changed a few minor things in the previous work regarding the 10 principles, but also regarding the 10 sciences discussed in this book, which is not in the previous book, right? So I hope this is clear. Now, those are the differences. Now, what are some of the unique features of this work? You will find these features only in this book and not in the previous work. Number one, I've added my own Senate to these 10 principles, to these Mabadi al-Ashara, going from my teacher all the way to Sheikh Muhammad bin Ali al-Saban with a connected chain. And I give a brief introduction to each name in the chain. I did not do that in the previous work. And I did this also to show students and to show the readers the importance of the Sanad and of the Isnad in our tradition, right? We take our knowledge via a Sanad, via an Isnad, a chain of people, right, so to speak. And this does not only pertain to Hadith, but also to all other Islamic sciences, and even for 3 lines of poetry, subhanallah. Second unique feature of this book is that almost half of this book is dedicated to the biography of Sheikh Muhammad bin Ali al-Saban, rahimahullah. This is a very unique feature, especially since no one has done that before. So for the first time in the English language, his biography is presented here in this book. And this biography is based on extensive research from my side, and there are many, many footnotes referring to the sources I used there. Especially for those people who have an academic interest in his biography, I would really recommend you get this book. Now, why did I add this biography? Because I think it is very important for us as Muslims, and especially for students of knowledge, to acquaint ourselves, can you say it in English? To get to know our ulama. In many cases, people know the established names, but it's also very interesting and very good to know and learn about other ulama, and especially about this great sheikh, who is, as I call him in my book, a giant in the dark. And why I call him a giant in the dark, that's the reason why you have this book. Or a genius in the dark, better to say. He's a giant and a genius in the dark. That's how I named the chapter on his biography in this book. So get this book, even if it's just for this reason. And knowing the biographies of our ulama, of our scholars, is very important, because you will learn a lot from them. There's a lot of lessons to take away from their biographies. And the last special feature of this book is an appendix at the end of the book, an appendix with the academic genealogy of Sheikh Muhammad bin Ali al-Sabban, meaning it's an overview of all the books and texts he studied with a certain teacher. And he studied with many teachers, but some of those teachers, they stand out, especially two teachers with whom he studied most. Interested? Buy the book. Get the book and you will find out what his lineage is, right? So what his sanad is. Now, the last question I will address in this video. Now, what is then the benefit of having this book? People might ask if I can also get the previous book. Well, I would say get both books. If you don't have my previous book, get this book. And if you want to go further, if you want to go deeper, if you want more content, get the other book, get my previous work. Now, my intention with the publication of this book and the previous work is actually to publish a whole range or a whole series of books on the topic of Al-Mabadi al-Ashra, aimed at different target groups and different markets worldwide. This is the second publication in that range, in that series, and some more are in the pipeline, are being written at the moment. And we ask Allah to grant us tawfiq to finish them and publish them, inshallah. So make dua for me. So even if you have the previous book, I think it's still worth considering buying this book. Now, this book is a concise study roadmap, right? It's like a blueprint for beginners, beginning students of knowledge, particularly English-speaking Muslims or Western students of knowledge, whether they speak English as their main language or not. And this book shows them how to approach classical Arabic texts and primary and secondary sources systematically, rather than studying subjects in isolation, right? One of those 10 principles is a nisbah. So knowing about the nisbah of a science enables you to have a wider perspective of all the Islamic sciences. Some sciences, they might overlap. Some sciences, they share a connection. This is very important to know, so you will have a sound understanding and a complete understanding of knowledge, right? Islamic knowledge. Now, this book definitely is shorter and different, as I already said, but it's still beneficial. As a teacher, I think especially you can use this book as a very good framework to build your lesson on, to develop your lessons on. And it's just enough material, you know, to design a course and to give a course, right? Whereas the other book is a little bit more extensive, although it's not a very elaborate book as well. But this is just more concise, shorter, and easier and more accessible, I think. that's also the purpose, of writing this book. It's a summary, it's an abridgment, and with an abridgment, you usually make things easier, and um, you facilitate or you cater for more people, right? Some people might be scared by reading it's about 17 sciences. That's why I also chose 10 sciences, right? It's maybe more appropriate for beginners, because it's not too much, right? It's just enough. Let me see what else. Now, after you've bought this book and you've read it, it also might be an incentive, excuse my language, excuse my mistake, it also might be an incentive to buy my previous work. So uh, knowing this book might lead to buying the other book, the earlier book, right? And this book is, of course, lastly, this book is, of course, cheaper than the previous work. And with this, I close off this introduction and discussion or review, as you will, of this new publication here. I hope it is of benefit. Are you interested? And I try to entice you a little bit, maybe here, to buy the book. I hope you will do it and support me, so I can keep working on my next projects. Inshallah, bi'idhnillah. Jazakum Allahu khaira. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.